Hello everybody, I'm Chris, and I'm really excited about today's project. This project was inspired by a light that I saw on Pinterest called Rings of Saturn. I wanted to put my own twist on it by using segmentation. I've always been interested in segmentation with wood, and this was just an opportunity for me to use it in a project. This project is very inexpensive, it takes very little tools, and all your friends are going to be so impressed when you start making projects using this new skill you're going to learn here. One thing I want you to take away from this project is you don't need to spend hours building a fancy jig for your table saw so that you can have perfect segmentation projects, and I'm going to show you how to do it right now, so let's get started. For this project, we're going to do segmentation. And the way I do segmentation, at least for this project, is I'm going to use this digital angle ruler by Camred, I think is who it is, or yeah, Camred. And I'll put a link to it in the description, but it's only like $11 or $14, so it's not too expensive, and it's affordable. In order to do 16 segments is what I need for the project. I'm going to put the angle on my miter saw at 11.5 or 11.25 degrees. If I wanted 8 segments, I would do it at 22.5 and so on. So I'm going to set it to 11.25 and lock it down. Okay? Now, I'm going to use my square here, and I'm going to use it for a 90 degrees so that I can be sure that I've got the angle that I need on here. Because my saw doesn't go to 11.5 that way. So I'm going to do 11.5 this way. So what I do is in my case, I slid the gauge down until this edge, which I know because I've verified it, that my blade is perfectly within like 1/1000th or maybe it's even 2/1000ths of being dead off this piece of plastic here. So I lined it up, and well, I'm going to line it up right now so you can see. For this project, it's not quite as critical that it's dead on, but the better you get this, the better they will fit together. You won't have gaps in here. It'll save you a little bit of sanding, because you may have to just gently sand some of this to make things line up, unless you build a sled. This is a segmentation sled, but I'm not going to use it for this project. And the main reason I'm not going to use it for this project is because I don't want you to have to build this just so you can do this project. And I don't want you to go and spend all the money to buy one. So I want you to be able to do this without breaking the bank. That's my saying, right? So let's see how we do with the old-fashioned way. Okay, I'm going to cut all these kind of a random length, but not totally random. And so I want my circle to be a certain size, so I need them this long. So I'm going to cut them only on one side, but not flip them. And you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, I have a stop block set up here, and if you want to know, this is 7 inches from here to the inside of the cut on the blade. And all the ones, you can't see it, but I marked them. I need to cut the opposite side, so I need to be sure I turn those down. And I'm going to put them up against my stop block, however many I can fit for one cut. And if you're wondering, yes, the width of this is actually compensated for. So, and I bet you there's some person that segmented before and they're going to go, that's all wrong. And it probably is, but this should work out. So there's the first ring. And that ring will actually be the inside ring. I'm going to use it more or less like a spacer. And you'll see after I get that far. Okay, I'm using some 1-bys that I got out of the trash. This was an old crate that was holding a lawnmower from maybe Tractor Supply or something. But it's 1-by pine, and I'm just ripping off a section, and I'm going to use both pieces. You're going to see here later on. But I'm cutting about 1.25 inches off of this board, and I'm going to reuse that. And the remaining piece will be the outer ring top and bottom. Now I've set up a stop block on my miter saw, and this stop block is about 1 inch longer than the overall length that I need. And I'm just going to cut repeated cuts over and over again. I need 16 for the top, 16 for the bottom. I'm making 2 rings, so that's 32. I'll also need a center ring. That's another 16 for each ring, so that's another 32. So quite a bit of cuts here, and so I'm not going to bore you with all of it. One thing I want to mention is that I'm going to save all of the tiny scraps that I just cut off, or will be cutting off also, and those will be also making additional small rings. Here I've just flipped each board over, stacked them in order on the table beside me, and I'm just cutting them to length now. This is the actual length that they're going to be in the end, and you can see my little stop block that I have sitting off there on the right. And each one of these cutoffs will also make a ring. So the 1 inch that I told you was going to be a random length, that's going to be repurposed, and that will make an additional ring. I'm marking one side of all the boards. I don't want to get them mixed up. I want them all on the same exact side. That way I can line them up. I don't want them flipped over. If you have an imperfection, that imperfection will be multiplied if your board is flipped or turned around when you cut it, or when you put it together. Not in the sense that if you just flip this one board here now, it would be out of order, or it will create an additional gap. But when you cut them in order, if you put them back in order the exact same way, they will fit together better. These skinnier boards are going to be the spacer in between, and which you'll see here in a little while. But again, I just got a random stop block, and then I'm going to put my stop block on the other side, set to the exact length that I need, and then cut those to length.
and save the little scrap piece. Now you can see what I meant about a spacer. Each one of these is going to go to make an additional ring on the inside. That spacer will make room for my piping or tubing that I'm going to use for the light. It's a lot of pieces, so just to give you an idea of how many, here's one set. There's two sets. Remember, save the offcuts. You can use them. Here I'm cheating and I'm cutting them all at one time. Now we're working on the second ring. Now I ran out of scrap, so I did have to go and buy a couple white pine boards, and it will make your project, quicker if you don't have to go through a bunch of junk. But here I'm gluing the second ring, the middle ring, and I'm just using some tie down material with loop and a bungee cord, and that's going to hold everything together tightly while the glue dries. Now I went a little overboard with the glue there, but you can actually glue it while it's all together, and it's a little tricky to put together, so you might need an extra hand. You might have saw earlier I put a little tape on things, and that will help you too. Tape one side and then just lift it up. Here I'm just knocking some of the rough edges off so that they'll go together a little smoother, but they did turn out really nice. They don't have any gaps, and I'm gonna build the second ring here, and this is the second ring for the first large ring. And this project doesn't take a lot of time. Really, it's just a lot of repetition. So cut, and then assemble. And so this was not a hard project in terms of time. So someone could build this project. I wouldn't put this on the really difficult level project. And of course, my least favorite part, sanding. Now you see the little rings there. Those are the offcuts, and we're going to use those. But at this point, I'm just going to clamp everything and glue it together. I'm trying my best to make everything line up like it did originally, because putting together bungee cords and all that, it's not dead on, but it'll stretch and bend because it's just pine wood. So putting it together was just a matter of clamps, right? You can put anything together if you have enough clamps. So again, you see the center pieces, those are the offcuts. And you can make other projects with those, or you can include it in this project, which I'm going to do. Now here's the secret. Aquapex water pipe. This is just white Aquapex water pipe. You can get 50 foot, I think, for $16 at the home store. It works great. And as you can see, I just got a $6 set of LEDs, and I'm sliding it inside. These are the kind you can cut to length. I pull it through, and I just cut off the extra. They have little tabs that tell you where to cut it. So I'm cutting it off. These just happen to be the waterproof version, but you don't need it. You don't need the waterproof version. And I think it looks great. So here I am. I'm testing the first ring and the second ring. And so there's where the spacer came in. The spacer is used to just keep from having to squish onto the piping. But I think if I were to build another one that was smaller, I would use the PEX as my spacer and drill through it. That way I could have light on the inside and the outside, just a different effect. And you can do whatever you want to do in your project. Put your own spin on things, right? Here I just pre-drilled everything. Now, this is also a little secret. Aluminum flashing. You can get 10 inch by 10 foot for about $7, and it's more than enough to do both rings. A piece of angle iron, I cut some 1 inch pieces, drilled them, and I'm going to use those as my wire or cable hangers. And you're going to see me install those in just a minute. Just drill a couple 3/16, maybe it's 1/8 inch holes in there. Gonna put some stain on it. My wife likes to use her nice clothes whenever she helps me. And now it's time to put it all back together. It's got a light coat of clear lacquer on it. And I used PEX couplings, and I put everything back together that way. I also used some brass screws to prevent rust. That holds everything just perfectly. Now I'm going to put the second set of LEDs in and cut them to length. I'll screw back on the top ring. And now I'm going to put the flashing. Once again, I'm just going to measure it, put a little score on it. And you can cut this with a utility knife and a straight edge. It's really easy. Just run the utility knife down a few times. It'll score pretty good and deep, and then you can fold it and it'll break right off. Now, I used some liquid nails adhesive, and I'm just going to put it on the inside and tape it real tightly so that it will conform to those small little 20 or 11.5 degree segments. And it turned out really good. A lot of tape, but it turned out really good. Let it dry. I let it dry overnight. Now I'm going to put these 1-inch angle iron brackets and these cables that I'm going to use to hang it. I'll put a link to the cables in the description below. This is going to be like the ceiling hanging sconce or whatever you might call it. Not sure what it's really called. But remember, this is those offcut cuts. And so you can use them for a lot of things. But these are just those brackets and wire. I'll put those in the description below. And here I'm just going to mock it up using my tripod to get everything wired up. Thanks for staying to the end. I wanted to keep the video fairly short so that you wouldn't just be watching me cut and glue and cut and glue, but basically it's a lot of cutting and gluing. If you want to help me out, go ahead and share this on your social media with all your friends so they can do this too. Also, hit the like button down there in the bottom. And if you have any easier or better ways, or you know of some tips for segmenting with less time and maybe even easier than what I did, please share that in the comments below. Also, I put all the materials down in the description so you can get those materials like the LED lights and the power supply and the cabling and all that stuff. Now, have fun with all your projects, and I'll see you back here in 2 weeks.